All right, we're on. Welcome, everyone. Really appreciate everyone joining today's webinar, Find Cloud Opportunities During an Economic Downturn. I really appreciate your attendance. So in today's economic climate, companies are facing increased pressure to cut costs, but also be innovative and find newer ways to generate revenue, all while keeping the lights on. And the cloud offers unique opportunity for businesses to manage and deliver on all of these expectations. With the ability to scale resources up and down as needed, companies can reduce costs associated with maintaining on premise infrastructure. Additionally, the cloud provides access to a wide range of cutting edge, innovative technologies that can help businesses to stay ahead of their competition and maintain their competitive advantage. On the flip side, the need for staff with the appropriate level of cloud skills has never been more important. The talent shortage continues to grow when it comes to cloud computing. And in this webinar, we're going to discuss some of these challenges that businesses are going to face in 2023, how cloud can uncover these new opportunities, and how to shore up your talent, your teams, so that you can have all the personnel, all the teams that can deliver on the goals you have for your business. Now, before we get started, let me introduce everyone very briefly. First, myself, my name is Michael Banta. I am one of the co-founders of Cloud Institute and also the VP of product here. We are an IT training and consulting company that helps companies invest in effective hands-on learning that transfers to the workplace by providing personalized coaching and hands-on instructing, skills validation to align with the company goals. Take that very seriously. So we also have Sandeep Parekh, who's the VP of go-to-market for Turing, and Dinesh Balasubramanian, the Associate Vice President of Teams Delivery and Cloud Services, also for Turing. Now, to give you a little background on Turing, they use artificial intelligence to match the world's most thoroughly vetted cloud developers and engineers and offers a range of end-to-end cloud services, including cloud assessment, data and application solutions, AI and ML innovations, quite a range of really, really good services. And they are cloud experts who are available globally, specialize in all major cloud providers, and helps businesses with their cloud investments to make those investments as efficient, effective, and affordable as possible. Now, Sandeep and Dinesh have very deep experience in technical service delivery and management. So, really excited to have these two gentlemen with me today. And as we go along, feel free to drop some questions in the chat. We'll take them as we go, and we'll also have some time for Q&A at the end. So let's go ahead and get started here. We have a number of really pertinent questions coming up that I'm going to pose to both Sandeep and Dinesh. So I'll preface this first one and mention that Cloud Institute did some pretty extensive research last year, and we did what's called a Cloud Skills Gap Impact Report to analyze the market of cloud personnel, talent, and the needs of the market overall. And we can share. Everybody can get a copy of this report if they'd like. Let us know in the chat. But to give you a few snippets, 60% of organizations are dealing with a very large to moderately large skills gap when it comes to cloud computing. And additionally, the cost of hiring someone without the appropriate experience is typically 30% of that person's compensation in order to replace them. And that's just on the monetary side. That doesn't take into account the time to replace someone who may not be the best fit. So, the first question I'll pose to Sandeep, what are some of the challenges that IT managers and recruiters are facing this year in 2023 due to this ever slowing economy?
So now, very pertinent question. I guess we're beginning of the year. So, Michael, first of all, thanks for inviting us. So, one of the things that we have seen, and based on my experience in the last couple of decades, in 2008 and 2001, it's like because of the uncertainty in the marketplace, budgets are kind of freezing up. So pretty much hiring is kind of coming to a standstill, which means not additional money is not available to kind of hire the kind of talent that is needed to deliver a lot of the projects and programs. But at the same time, the expectation to do digital transformation initiatives and drive value for, be it for the end customer or to the businesses, is still needed in the current macroeconomic condition. Specifically with respect to the cloud aspect, what we have seen in the last couple of years is the commitment to cloud has increased from the C-suite. So previously, if the adoption rate was maybe at 20-30% from a workload perspective, it certainly is increasing to the 40-50% level and increasing continuously, which is creating kind of an issue for the teams which are trying to execute a lot of these projects and programs. So, Dinesh?
Yeah, really good insight. Dinesh, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I kind of echo what Sandeep has been saying, right? Although we are relatively seeing some slowdown, but there are digital transformation which is still running in progress, right? So companies who there are certain sectors which cannot do away or stop projects just like that. Examples are the retail, the CPG, the healthcare. These are kind of industries where the things have to move on regardless of the market situation, and there's always going to be opportunities to kind of transform your environment and build new skills, features, and capabilities for your own customers, right? So that work is still ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just shows the growth of cloud is certainly not stopping or slowing down anytime soon, and continues to be extremely relevant and important to have that talent there. So, uh, build off those points, and again, I'll give a little setup here. Now, going back to that cloud impact report, some additional very interesting insights we gathered from hundreds of businesses and enterprises that we surveyed. So typically the areas of the business that were most impacted by this shortage of cloud skills, uh, cybersecurity ranked the highest, and innovation, new product, uh, that type of discipline was right in line with cybersecurity. Both those areas of a business certainly are impacted greatly when it comes to not having the right folks. And the chart you see on the screen is exactly showing a few of the other areas of business that are disrupted, but these are very significant when something as important as product related and cybersecurity are so heavily impacted by personnel, not necessarily having the right skills or teams not being aligned with the cloud initiatives. So again, I'll pose this question to Sandeep first. how do the challenges really impact IT teams and projects when these gaps exist within a company?
So, few of the things as we are working with a lot of our customers that we're seeing, Michael, is the one is the whole. I mean, we're just coming out of the COVID pandemic, and maybe not completely out of it. And as a result of it, people are still trying to adjust to new ways of working. But at the same time, there is the wave of the whole great resignation that was going on. So clients are seeing a lot of loss of their talents, the tech talent. So in addition to the shortage, and like you pointed out earlier, the cost of replacing some of this talent is higher. So that's on one end that they have to do. The second impact that the IT teams are seeing is more from a technology perspective. Is the service providers, the cloud service providers, are providing a lot more technological innovation that the teams are needing to learn in order to kind of get through that innovation that you want to achieve, or the project execution that needs to be done. And there is certainly a gap over there, right? So that's another impact on the teams wherein they have to learn a lot of this technology to really deliver onto the projects and the programs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Dinesh, how do you feel about these impacts?
Definitely the talent shortage is real, and it stems from the fact that we've actually seen a lot of analysts also talk about it, right? Like example is IDC definitely stating that by 2025 there's a need for about 4 million cloud professionals, and we are consuming more. Let's say, for example, Sunny just talked about the great resignation, right? And it clearly is an indication that there is a lot of projects which have to be implemented, but they're not enough people. So it just goes by saying that we are not training enough people to get these projects running. And the downside impact of this is that when you don't have the right set of people to execute your projects, either the projects get stalled, delayed, and thereby it kind of impacts your time to market as well, right? So yeah, this talent short is definitely real.
Yeah, it really has tangible impacts negatively, unfortunately. So
Yep.
it is something that we both Turing and Cloud Institute we live to address, and we'll get more into that in a few minutes. But it brings up a bit of an interesting question to dive deeper on these challenges, since, like Dinesh mentioned, just in a couple years, there's going to need to be millions of more talented cloud engineers, developers, architects, all sorts of types of disciplines within cloud computing. So um, these challenges are certainly going to persist, but there certainly are ways to achieve really good, desirable outcomes for projects, products, innovations, and company goals overall when it comes to technology, cloud computing, despite all of these challenges. So let's think about and discuss, what approaches can be taken to achieve some of these outcomes. And Sandeep, I'll go to you first again.
So, it's interesting. I mean, from a strategy or an approach perspective, right? As customers and clients are adopting cloud and the relevant technology associated with that, there are, we've seen certain trends, and in my past life as well as worked, is, it might take a few minutes, let's say, to provision a farm of servers, right? But the internal approval process to get that thing up and running might run into weeks, right? So the one of the approaches is to look at the current set of processes, which probably were built out for maybe the data center or some previous set of technologies, and revisit those and figure out how do you start eliminating a lot of the hindrances that might be there in terms of utilizing a lot of this technology and kind of really get it to leverage what cloud has to offer, which is agility, robustness, and flexibility, right? So leveraging all of those aspects of things. And how do you get to those pieces, right? That's one of the fundamental things at looking at it. And in order to implement some of those aspects, and I'm sure Dinesh can talk a lot more about that from an actual implementation aspect, but what we have always consulted and mentioned to our customers has been to kind of set up that cloud foundation, right? I mean, just doing a lift and shift, gets you out on there, but if you just don't have that right initial foundation, you hit into a lot of these roadblocks, which are typically implemented as a manual business process, right? So those are kind of fundamental things to think about as we are kind of adopting some of these cloud technologies and implementing those, right? So I'm sure Dinesh, you can dive into a few of the examples that we can that kind of elaborate this a bit more.
Yeah, I can definitely state some examples where we've seen the pace of innovation, especially with the hyperscalers, is pretty fast, right? Every quarter you will actually see that there's a new service that gets rolled out, but there's not enough people who are really ready for it, right? And it takes some time for them for companies also to adopt it. Now, given that scenario, the foundations which Sandeep was talking about becomes really important is in your implementation or in your transformation journey, because one is you need to be able to have this particular tools and technology scale at an organizational level, right? That would mean that the people who are going to be consumers and also the implementers of this particular technology, they have to know what it is, right? And the second thing that definitely needs to be done, and which we see that most companies are actually struggling, is the right fitment of those tools and technologies, right? Essentially, a lot of companies just go by the buzzwords, and the product companies claiming that this particular feature can actually save the world, right? But the more we get into implementation, we see that that may not be really fit for the purpose for that particular company, right? So the real assessment of that particular tools or technology, will it be right for your company, is something that the team needs to spend time on analyzing. And there is definitely, as we build this foundation, one of the things that we've increasingly seen is that as the technology is evolving, so is the involvement of human in the loop, right? We've been talking about AI, ML, auto heal, other types of technologies. These type of implementations is far and few, and if you want to get away with any dependence on human in the loop, there has to be a focused effort on building a foundation for automation also, because there are specialized tools for that as well, right? So these are kind of typical challenges or examples where we've seen and we've recommended customers that build a solid foundation for you to accelerate and scale at a company level.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So actually, adding to those points out there, Michael, to what Dinesh is talking about, right? Please. So one is the fitment aspect of it. The other piece, as I was mentioning earlier, is like automate your entire PLC to the extent possible, right? Look at automation as an approach and invest in automation to really, kind of get the hindrance that might be there in the developers, so that the developers can focus on development activity rather than, kind of walking through a process. So looking at automation and leveraging existing technology from that perspective to implement whatever it might be. It could be productize the service, right? So you have to create an environment for a given set of applications. You probably have a map of how to generate and create a product out of it so that you're not setting up small VMs and then doing the network. It's just productize that, automate that offering and make it available so that, it's a lot more easily consumable by the resources. And by implementing a lot of the automation, you can do some of the cost management as well. So if you need it, if the technology is not being used, right, you can actually scale down some of the things. So those are some of the key things that need to be looked upon by the clients to really get the value out of the cloud implementations.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the key opportunity in all of these challenges is getting that value out of whatever you're implementing. Since so many companies, cloud certainly is a buzzword. Everyone wants to go to cloud, adopt cloud services, but really making sure you're getting the value out of these technologies is crucial. Absolutely. All right, so let's move on, and I don't want to say shift gears, but go to a tangentially related question and thinking back to talent with a multitude of different cloud skills between teams, and achieving this is certainly difficult, and it's scarce to find companies that are doing well at this. So in thinking of this challenge and that talent with the cloud skills needed to achieve these outcomes is certainly a big opportunity for a lot of businesses. So how can the leaders in IT, the managers within the company, recruiters in this area, how can they improve their talent pool, and how do the options to improve that talent pool really help benefit the customers and the clients of these organizations?
So, if I look at the approach, right, it's the strategy is not so much as radical. It's the meat is in the implementation of it, right? So, it's the approaches that you could have is go hire some talent out there in the marketplace if you are able to find that, which might be pretty expensive as it is, there is a shortage. But you certainly need to do some of that to have that in-house capability. Right? Second approach is, to look at, how do you train some of your existing talent, which is kind of suited to be trained for a lot of this new technology. And the third piece of it is actually, a lot of companies have done this in the past, and but it probably needs to be implemented in a better manner, is to work with the service providers who have a lot of this talent in-house, right? But it needs to be done in a manner where, some of that, the internal talent that the clients have are getting trained as well as a part of the whole equation of hiring a service provider, right? Mm-hmm. So typical approaches that we recommended and we're working with clients is in regards to do kind of a gap assessment, right? Figure out where the gaps are from a tech talent perspective, and don't do it only in, let's say, a pool of developers who were managing the infrastructure, right? It's across the board, because you need to do it for business to figure out how best to leverage a lot of the cloud properties. You need to do it with finance to figure out how to kind of measure the cost efficiency aspect of things, right? Even the IT leaders need to have the knowledge and the training to really make the right decisions from a perspective of single cloud versus multi-cloud versus hybrid cloud versus what exactly they need to do, and of course the tech talent which is going to deliver. That's one aspect of kind of doing that assessment, gap assessment metric to figure out where the gaps are, and then probably design the strategies to say how do you fulfill that gap, right? Number one. The second part of the equation is not everyone has to be the superstar or the expert out there, right? Build out a model that's appropriate for you, right? We have plans who have defined that, having 20% of their teams as experts, that actually helps us establish a lot of those foundations, and have that deep knowledge. Let's say you are embarking upon a app modernization program, right? So do you have the resources and headcount which can leverage a lot of the technologies out there? Could be the re-architecting to microservices, could be containerization that you are trying to implement, whatever your strategy for achieving the modernization might be. So that's one aspect. The second piece to look at, especially when you're building up this whole talent model, is not just have the deep cloud experience. There is a lot of talent which was sitting out there, which had the old IT data center management, which is very much still needed, right? So having that broad experience across the board is also important, right? So building out strategies and models where you look at your talent pool and say, don't need to have everyone as an expert, but I need 20% in this bucket, 15% in this bucket, and finally a lot of program people can be trained into with some of these technologies, right? So those are some of the strategies, but the key thing is implementation and how you go about implementing those.
Yeah, very good way to wrap that up. That makes a lot of sense. Dinesh, any insight to add on to that?
Some points which I would definitely love to add is the sentiment around the strategy, right? So the reason I use the word sentiment is because we see increasingly tech, mainly the tech companies, right? They're always in dilemma of build versus buy, whether it's platform tools, technologies, or the relative services itself. Is that the technology companies want to build things on their own, right? But you also have to your strategy should be defined by what is the business objective or the goal that you really want to define for maybe this year or maybe a couple of years in the future. And that's where you would actually have to take a look at your organization and see if you have those capabilities within the organization, and if you don't, then what does it take to build those capabilities, right? And it's not necessarily that you have to build everything on your own. Your decision could be more intelligent and more efficient in a way where if you are on a time crunch to build a product that you need to take to the market, say next quarter, and if you find this kind of service or product which is available in the market, the best approach would be to go ahead and then engage that service provider or maybe the service itself, and then get a kickstart. That is one way to kind of circumvent some of these challenges that you always have with the skill shortages.
Yeah, that's very good points. And to add on to that, if we could pull up the learning retention pyramid and show that to everyone, that would be really helpful to illustrate some of the findings that research has shown. And this just illustrates, from a scientific perspective, the types of approaches companies typically invest in for their employees. And as you can see, as you go down the pyramid, the retention of new skills and new knowledge for employees tends to be significantly stickier, and ultimately it lands on those who receive that really immersive, hands-on type of learning, and is able to practice this and teach it to their peers and help each other along. But hands-on immersive types of opportunities for employees and individuals regardless, that is far and away the best way to upskill, reskill, improve your teams. And that's actually a point that one of the attendees made in the chat, in mentioning that so many teams are really staffed pretty shortly, and a lot of times that means new team members don't get enough of that cross training that certainly is possible and available. So having that cross training, having that hands-on immersive approach is extremely valuable for a cloud journey, IT journey, the goals, whatever is really an opportunity for that company when it comes to innovation, cloud adoption, and it even applies to other areas of business as well. But it is particularly crucial in this environment where there is such a skills gap and a shortage, to have that immersive hands-on approach to invest in your teams and your colleagues. So that was a good point by I believe it was Scott in the chat there. So I appreciate the insight. Very, very valuable. Now we'll go to a couple of pieces, and we'll share this after the webinar here. Everyone within the next day is going to get this recording. They'll get the links to a lot of the resources that we mentioned, that Cloud Skills Gap Impact Report that Cloud Institute has done, as well as a couple key pieces of research from Turing. There's one on software development trends, even cloud computing trends, specifically for 2023. So these are very good, very thorough research pieces that we invested in just to share with the internet, really, to get that insight out there, help the businesses improve, reach your goals, whatever it may be. And we do have a couple questions in Q&A, so I do want to pose that to Sandeep and Dinesh. So one that came up is, do you believe that AI, ML, as that technology improves, is that going to be able to really fill part or some of this skills gap of professionals as time goes on?
That's an interesting question, right? Especially as you see, what current models are kind of driving in terms of, be it the buzz around ChatGPT in the recent few months with respect to how it's kind of almost answering human-like on questions across the board, right? But at least the way we are looking at it is, on the AI ML front, there's two different aspects, right? So one of the thing is, AI ML models are maturing quite a bit, be it similar to ChatGPT and competing other products from DeepMind and such, where the application of AI ML seems to be more for your business processes, as against identifying how do you fulfill this particular requirement, right? And the shortage gap, if you look at, is not so much in terms of answering a set of 5-10 questions of saying, yeah, what should this look like? The tech talent shortage is more in terms of, look at from a point of view of, if you had to design a particular solution, right? Would you get the optimal solution leveraging past patterns? Maybe, maybe not. But we haven't seen as many trends or implementations of AI, ML doing solutions over there. That they're more from decision-making systems, so a lot more easier decisions to be reached upon at. So, in the near future, at least in the short term period, kind of what you would call as an H2, H3 rise, and we don't foresee that getting fulfilled by AI ML, but you never say never, right? So,
Right.
yeah, you train enough, and maybe the AI ML model can actually start doing some of the mundane rudimentary tasks. But I mean, where we've seen that trend where a lot of bots have been built out to kind of automate a lot of some of the monitoring pieces and automation you've seen kick in to keep the lights on kind of tasks, right? But to actually design solutions to leverage some of the newer technologies, it's not where we've seen the models being applied at this point in time.
Right. Yeah. Very good point. Dinesh, anything to add?
My point is again echo what Scott has mentioned in the audience as well, right? Both the skills and the use cases that the AI or ML can actually be used for has to be looked at in isolation. I don't think at this time we can clearly say that AI ML will actually have all the skills or will replace those skills, right? We definitely are seeing examples where the AI ML is being used mostly in the operations side, where you want to detect an anomaly in a particular system, right? In the way it was supposed to function, it's not, and thereby triggering a process which could actually auto heal the system, right? So these are kind of that's one example of where AI ML is being used, and there is these chatbots where the language being one of the skills, which is also being manipulated at this point, where we are seeing increasing use of these chatbots to answer regular or repeated questions, which a customer service agent might be asked for, or if you're looking for inquiry into a travel system. So these are the majority of the use cases that we have seen, and as of today, I I also feel like what Sandeep said. I don't think they're going to be replacing the skill, or they are intelligent enough at this point uh, to uh, to kind of fill the gap or the void.
Yeah, that's true. It does seem hard to see how, or hard to grasp how a program could help fill that gap. But like Sandeep mentioned, ChatGPT certainly has taken the world by storm with how innovative it is, and the technology is only going to get better. So it'll be interesting to see how much it can really help when it comes to an actual work effort by somebody themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So last question we have here. Very interesting. So George posed a question that if the shortage in uh, innovation be due in part to maybe not looking broadly enough, outside of a cloud engineer or a cloud architect, and maybe looking at folks who have more of an atypical background, such whether they're in marketing, product, sales, other areas of the business, and maybe that can help with this shortage of the skills gap and innovation for companies, as opposed to strictly looking at IT teams. So I was wondering either if you have particular thoughts around that.
So, interesting question. So there's multiple kind of dimensions or aspects that you could think of from that perspective, right? Especially with respect to innovation. So one is there a value of having multidisciplinary view in terms of being able to achieve business innovation or product innovation. And I think time and again, a lot of the companies have shown that there is certainly a lot more value to have those different voices or point of views, right? As long as you're able to bring them together onto a common language, if you will, right? Where you kind of having different points of view, even just for example, from a college chat GPT, it's getting trained in all kinds of different dimensions, right? And it's not a single dimensional chatbot kind of a trained model, right? So there is certainly a lot of value from that perspective. Now, when we start looking at technology and the implementation of it, right? If we need to get someone trained onto a lot of the cutting edge, let's say, cloud technologies, right? Be it utilizing all of the which is the services that whether AWS were to offer or cloud or any of the other cloud providers or GCP had to provide or whoever had to provide, right? You need that fundamental knowledge, underlying technical knowledge of saying, be it, depending on the whatever you're trying to implement. Now, without knowing coding, how are you going to go really leverage some of those technologies, right? It starts becoming difficult from that perspective. So there is a fundamental route that for some certain foundations that certainly need to be established on that front before you start utilizing some of these higher end, right? At the same time, from a actual implementation perspective, today, does everyone need to go build out an AI ML model? No, actually not. The innovation can certainly come through in terms of how do you utilize some of these models and implement it into your business processes or into that particular differentiation that you're bringing. So that value proposition from a business layer perspective certainly is there. From a technology perspective, it's a uphill battle, right? Because you do need to have the foundation elements in place. For someone in liberal arts or not having the basic computational skills.
Yeah. And then
solid points.
To add to what Sandeep said, and innovation also has to be looked at in isolation, whether it's a innovation in technology or whether it's a innovation in the business processes, right? Where I see some of these roles which George has mentioned, fit is whenever I'm looking at in innovating an entire business process by leveraging technology. Definitely there is need for domain experts, right? I'm not kind of when I say domain experts, it's a broad terminology. It could be people coming with knowledge in arts. It could be people coming with knowledge in entire business process for that particular industry. Example could be logistics. How do I optimize the routing? As an example, right?
Right.
Will a technician or an architect be able to come up with a solution to optimize the routing? Maybe not. So you do need somebody who understands the geography, how routing works, and what are the different aspects, different handoffs within the routing system to make it more efficient, right? And that's where the domain expertise comes in. And if you are able to kind of create a map on how and where the bottlenecks are and the improvement in the processes, a technician can actually come in and build a system for you which would address those bottlenecks. So that way, there is a role to play in innovation from each of these kind of professionals, and it totally depends on what type of innovation you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. It definitely depends on the goal and who can and should be involved for that. Yeah, good points. Wonderful. Yeah, that was the last of the questions. So definitely, anyone else, if you have anything that comes up, you can certainly get in touch with us. And really appreciate everyone joining. big thank you to Sandeep and Dinesh for all the insight and going through the questions with us. I hope you found this pretty valuable. So again, to share with you the resources that we're going to be sending out along with the recording to this webinar. These links, when we send them to you, they're going to be clickable once you get them in your email. So it's a lot of really good, really relevant data, research, and information. So everybody is going to be receiving those in the next day. So thanks again for joining.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks for
take care.
Bye.